name is Keziah Ridgway, and I am here with two beautiful and extremely talented young folk that are in front of me. And today we're going to be talking about the arts and poetry. And I think this is a really important conversation to have because oftentimes it gets overlooked, especially in the core subjects, right? And so we're going to have these conversations with artists, people who are making a living and doing phenomenal work in their respective fields and what they are doing. And so I am going to take a little bit of time and introduce my wonderful panelists for the evening.
Yay!
So first up, we're going to start with the beautiful Melissa Park. Pronouns are she, her. She's a Brooklyn-based artist, founder of Black Teaching Artists Lab, also known as BTAL, creator of the Afrocentric Social Emotional Learning Method. She enjoys listening to, dissecting, and analyzing music from the likes of Dave Matthews, Incubus, Jay Dilla, Hieroglyphics, Square Pusher, Fugazi, Revolution, Soulja, The Sea and Cake, Cultura Perfectica, hope I got that right, and many more. Melissa recently joined the Teaching Artists Project, TAP, Spring Cohort, a division of the Community Word Project, in order to better understand the teacher training process and to become a stronger facilitator herself. Next, we have the beautiful Jahan A. Am I saying it right, Jahan?
Yes, you're saying it perfectly.
We have the beautiful Jahan A. Thomas, and she is a visual artist, artivist, love that, museum and community arts educator from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Philly. She uses her art and creativity as a tool to enhance and amplify the voices and experiences of the people in her community. She loves to paint, draw, teach, work with ceramics. As an educator and teaching artist, she incorporates abolition, Afrofuturism, which I love, trauma-informed training, and joy in her curriculums. Thomas has over 13 years experience teaching and facilitating art and cultural programming. She advocates for arts accessibility, arts integration in the curriculum, Black art history, and the use of other creative thinking strategies. So we're gonna act like we have an actual audience and we're gonna clap it up. Is there anything that either Melissa or Jahan, anything that you just want to say before we dive into our questions for the evening?
You want to go first?
Go ahead, Melissa. What were you going to say?
I just want to say just one general thing for me. A lot of times, I'm in this program in TAP, and they always ask you, okay, like, what is your art medium? Like, what type of artist are you? And I say music because I'm trained in music, but I think a lot of art educators, I think a lot of us could say that education is our art. I like to say that. We mold it and shape it in different ways, and we are innovators. Teaching artists are the cultural and social responders in the classroom. So I think looking at education as an art form is also something we should all kind of think about and percolate. I think it's an interesting concept. So I just want to add that on.
Yeah. I definitely feel that, Melissa, and just to even just go on with that, just that art is life, and that there's no like separate thing from it. It all like weaves itself, and you can find it in so many different ways. So there's no reason to separate like the ART, what art is. It really is everything, and it took a while to really figure that out. So I think we can highlight each other like better if we take that whole look at it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm really excited. I don't know if I could say I'm so excited about tonight. I have loved the arts for as long as I can remember. I took dance when I was younger. I've always written poetry. I just kind of never really put it out in the world, in addition to writing. So for me, I know that what writing does for me in terms of helping me process my feelings, which I think is really important. And so we want to just go into that question, right? Like, why is the arts and education so important? And either one of you can take it. It can start.
Um, I'll say that, I think it's important because it's another entryway. It allows people to lock in and jump out and jump in and shine in other ways that specific, say, quote unquote, academia may not allow certain students or certain people. I think that there's really been an issue with just separating what creativity is and what academia is. And I think it's like a really big issue. And, I think it causes people to have these anxieties where, like, for example, in my high school classes, students were great at art, but their parents would not support them to go to a college that was an art school. Like, yo, you're really good at this drawing stuff, okay? But I'm not paying you to go to school for that, And they would just be like, all right, and just drop it. How many people do we know that are creative that are just like, well, I just kind of went and did this? I mean, rightly so, but I just think that, how it is important is that it taps in and locks in and lets people shine in ways that are also valuable than just one particular value set.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And I want to bring in Melissa because I don't want to be that facilitator that's out here constantly talking. So
yeah.
The spotlight on y'all. So let's bring Melissa in. And how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, for me, I definitely look at my perspective for Black educators and Black students. And when I say Black, I refer to folks who are a part of the African diaspora, so folks who have their lineage to West African slavery, and looking at how art education could be sort of this channel for us to better understand our culture and our identity, and I think there's been a lot of conversation about, especially what the conversation happened yesterday, like how do we have better conversations about what's happening with race? We have a conversation about cultures, and we're looking at our artists or looking for Black educators to give us these answers. And it's like, we weren't taught that. We were kind of taught ourselves, and we weren't taught in schools. So for me, I think as an educator, as someone who's bringing something new to the table, I think it's important to not only to value how art education could be looked at. It could amplify the Black voice, and it could give Black educators the opportunity to talk about Black culture and talk about history. You can talk about Black science through art. That is something that we are capable to do, and something that Black Teaching Artists does. So please join Black Teaching Artists Lab. Just a quick plug.
Yes.
No, totally registered, like already registered.
Love it.
But honestly, totally. I mean, that's what we all do. And I think that's all what we're all currently doing. And maybe not consciously, but also subconsciously, we're all asking each other these questions of like, okay, like this is happening in our country. Like, what do we do? And like, we're already doing a lot of this, and how do we codify it? I think that's, I probably did not answer that question, but.
Yes. No, you
I totally feel that. Yeah. No, I totally feel that, you mentioned that there needs to be some type of like sync, because we have to start with our reflection first. And that's like really kind of the issue. And what I've been saying to myself over and over again, my friends hear me say this, like our reflection needs to be the answer in spaces where your reflection might have been put as a secondary, not even on the list to try to think about. We need to be aggressive in how we help our audiences, which are based in, in this case, we're talking about Black and brown people, we're talking about Black people especially, base our knowledge in our reflection and how you use art through that, through cultural appreciation. And I'll say it, us 4 or 5 on here may know certain things, and we worked hard to like gain that knowledge, but some people don't know things that you think is like rudimentary. It's not. It's like rudimentary. It's not. Some people really don't know. So you thinking like you're just this Black history, something like, no, every drop counts, So having a foundation on Blackness, pro-Blackness, not anti-Blackness in your work is important. And it's not just some loosey-goosey tenet that's in your, committee. It's like a real thing that's like, if you don't do it, you're being harmful. That's why I need the educators to be brown. I need the educators to be culturally competent, or you can't be in this space, because we've had so much of you in our spaces, in our specifically teaching artist spaces, that it's like, maybe you're the one of in a group. And it's like, well, I really need this lesson to reflect my students. Like, and I can teach you this and show you, but if you don't get it, you may not be able to be in that space, because otherwise it'd be harmful. Or like you said, Melissa, you need to have a lead. Like, you're going to be my assistant and I'm going to lead this, because my reflection and these students or this audience really need that.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry I went on, but
no,
I just really feel what you were saying, Melissa.
It's so good. Just one last thing. The reason, just to put it full circle, is why art education and teaching Black teaching artists are so important, is because we have the ability to look at our culture, but also look at ourselves. What is my Black identity? Who am I? Melissa Park, who loves Dave Matthews and has a poster of him in my room, versus Melissa Park, who's 6 feet tall and going to the corner store, and someone might think that I might rob them. Those are realities happen, and I think it's just really important for us to acknowledge that. And I think art is just the way to do it.
Period. Full stop. That's when Mary had a little
period.
Lamp. All right.
Period.
We also want to encourage everybody that's watching, please put some, if you want to ask questions for us, there will be time for that. So please throw that in the chat, and we have a ghost person behind the scenes right now who is paying attention to the live stream and making all this magic happen. So they're going to share with us any questions that y'all have. All right, so I asked both of you, why is the arts and education so important? So now I'm going to bring it down to a little chunk, right? Why should students be exposed to poetry throughout the curriculum in schools? And I asked this question because, it is Poetry Month, right? And so I think it is so important to acknowledge that, and B, like, why should this form of art be something that is happening in the core subjects? What does poetry do for just not only just the student, but also for the subject that it's being utilized in? And any one of you can take it.
Go ahead, Melissa.
That's a great question. I think poetry, I personally am not a poet, but the way in which you create a poem and the way in which you analyze a poem, the subtleness within it is so profound, and having these kind of conversations, like, you could do it through history, you could, haiku through math, and it's really universal, and it's a really easy tool to, it's as you talked about before, like having a good foundation, right? And kind of, utilize it in whatever way that you can. So I think that's kind of like my basic answer for that, for poetry. But in way for if I were to use poetry in a classroom, because I do work with teaching artists, I would definitely use it in history and kind of looking at how it kind of progressed. I think that would be really cool to look at how history kind of progressed. And I know the Teaching Artists Project, the organization I'm associated with, they do protest poetry with their students, and I think it's so rad and really amazing. I'll send a link to you guys to check that out. So
that's awesome.
it's really
Yeah,
cool.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really good. No, that's really, Melissa, you just really summed it up, just another entryway for literacy, another way to connect, through actual language, so you can study other people's language. You don't have to even keep it with, English. You can study other cultures. I mean, Melissa really just hit it, but just another entryway to have a personal journey and express it through language. I'm really big on thesauruses. So like just finding those unique words to really describe what you want and what you need. I love a good thesaurus, okay? Tyrannosaurus,
Yes.
thesaurus, okay? But I'm just saying that language, like learning other languages and like you said, Melissa, like learning other different ways of writing, just literacy, creative writing, poetry, and spoken word really allows like a quiet freeness, a power that's quiet, but it's loud, Amanda Gorman, all day, Sonia Sanchez all day, so so I think it really does it just allows that language for people to have their own language. And then when you learn that you don't have to rhyme, and you don't have, and you just want to freestyle or whatever, I mean, what these rappers got, just stacks of notebooks with these words in it. They're just words. So why we love Tupac? Why do we love, Biggie? Why do we love Dave Matthews? It's these words, that turn into lyrics as a song. So, poetry and spoken word is very powerful.
Absolutely. Thank y'all both so much. And so let's talk about this a little bit more, right? So if you are a science teacher, a math teacher, a foreign language teacher, or a history teacher, like what are some ways that those type of teachers can bring art, any type of art, including poetry, into the classroom? How would you suggest these teachers be more creative within their subject areas?
I could say a little bit about, I studied history, like I'm a big history buff, studied American history, and my thesis was on like Teddy Roosevelt's international policies during World War II. So like, I'm like hardcore nerd.
Yes.
But
okay.
What I think, again, a lot of my work is in Pan-Africanism and Pan-African cultures. And one thing I think is really interesting is talking about like social awareness and like the diversity within like the Black community and the African diaspora. So talking about soca music in the Caribbean and Afro beats and then salsa and like having these kind of conversations about how they're all different, but we're all so similar. Okay, what does that mean? We're all mean that we're connected to West Africa, and then it also talks. We get into these conversations about like universal truths and how we all are just really connected. I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is find like these universal truths as artists, as humans. And I think looking at, I'm just gonna advocate for Pan-African like history. That's just kind of like what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I think looking at history and using art as that vessel, I think is able for us to be better connected, if that is the goal, which I think we all as humans want to do that. I think we all want to be connected and loved.
So
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, so for Melissa, like considering the art that you do, if let's say you were thrown into a math class, right? How could you utilize your expertise in that math class?
well, maybe not math. I mean, history, yes. I know I was reading a little bit about you sent this really good link about mathematics and poetry and like the haikus, and I was like, okay, like that just doesn't add up, because I think to myself, like, how do I integrate my thoughts into science and math? And I just like, okay, like that doesn't exist. But it was really fascinating how like the Pythagorean theorem and how like you could use different, I was like, okay, like that makes sense.
Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
Poem. Yep.
It was really enlightening. I think that was really interesting. Yeah. And counting, oh yeah, hip hop lyrics and counting. Yeah, I guess I'm just really not good at math. I don't know. I really think about that part.
You know
No,
what? Well, let's. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say let's bring hand in.
Oh no, I was just gonna say no. I totally get you. That's what they keep telling us. You're not good at math. You like to draw, right? Oh, you like to color stuff in. Oh yeah, she's good at that. Oh, but oh no, she's not good at math. You get C's and D's, and nah, she's not good at math. Your C's and D's are something else, like, but through that value system, it says that you're not good at math. But when you go into me, and I share this story with my anybody who wants to listen to it, but I share this story that I'm like, 25 in an anatomy class, and it just like hit me in the chest, like, this is fractions. Oh my gosh, this is fractions. I know how to do this. I know how to do math, so it's just like this integration that needs to happen much intentionally and much more early and more pro-Black and less white and less supremacist, and how we get our anybody's, especially Black bodies, to think more expansively. Another quick thing I'll say, and I'm a visual artist, and I do some creative writing as well. I have that, I take that challenge on to say, oh no, you got the paint stuff down, like, that's you. You're like, oh no. You want to get in the lab? Come on, let's get in the lab. Let me tell you how to make paint. Let me tell you how they mix the colors up. Oh no, you got to get the viscosity right to this. Oh no, that's wrong. So I don't let people try to box my creativity in. Push yourself. We want to push the people that that we're around, especially our Black minds, So and then I'll just lastly share that an example that I used to bridge one thing that I used really quickly was I combined learning about the volume of a triangle with basically making triangle 3D shapes. Oh. And so what I had them do was they had to, we learned about the formula of a triangle and the volume, and then I actually just cut up a whole bunch of different triangles, and I said they have to actually construct it 3D, no matter what size it was, and then figure that out. So there was a way that we could connect, but it definitely takes some intention. So we can do it. We can do it. We're creative. We use math.
I can see, like, if it's a foreign language teacher, I can see them maybe asking the question to a student, how do you see yourself as an American? How do you see yourself as like your host country, right? Like as, say, a Dominican, right? And then have them like write those words down and create some sort of visual art or visual image to go with it, right? So you're in a foreign language class, but you're bringing art into it. Or if, maybe a science teacher, possibly if they're teaching about Henrietta Lacks, right? Which is something that every science teacher in high school needs to be teaching about, especially if we're talking about cells and
required unit. Yeah,
absolutely. So maybe like take a cell and kind of like turn it inside out, turn it into an art piece or something of that nature. Just finding ways to bring art, to bring visual artistry, to bring poetry and things of that nature inside of these core subjects that people are like, we don't have time to do that in, or we can't make that work. And it really just takes a matter of like talking with an artist, finding out what they do, and then finding ways to make that work within the curriculum. Would y'all agree with that?
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing, which I think is really important. I think we're all talking about culturally responsive learning, and it's not even, I'm not even talking about like cultures as in like different cultures, like cultures within like subjects, right? Like we have to be more responsive and be, as we all are saying, a little bit more responsive and understanding and learning about like these different ways. So we as artists, as creatives, could think of creative ways to think about the Pythagorean theorem or geometry. You know, it's the system is too, it's not even, I don't want to say it's too white or it's very
Restricted.
Eurocentric.
Yeah.
It's restricted, and even
Yeah.
one way of thinking is
Right.
too much. It's not
Right.
just like a racial thing. It's just